Hey guys, today I would like to share with you how I converted my 30 amp motorhome to a 50 amp motorhome. And with a little bit of time and effort, you can too. Stay tuned. Hi there. I wanted to show you the conversion that I did on our 2004 Thor Hurricane. This coach originally came with a 30 amp setup for power, but the RV itself has two air conditioners from the factory. And the way that those air conditioners used to work was when you were plugged into shore power, if you wanted the front AC to run, then you would have to throw a switch over there. If you wanted to run the rear AC, you would have to flip it the other way. With the generator running, it would run both front and rear ACs. Well, when we're at a park and it's 110 degrees outside and we want to run another AC, it's not possible being plugged in, and a lot of parks will not let you run your generator. So this problem perplexed me, and there was no information on the internet on how to convert simply without going into super detail. What I did was spent many nights up trying to figure out how to conform this RV to being a 50 amp with minimal cost. I know there's a lot of other systems out there. Victron and stuff has some other setups that you can use. But for this particular motorhome, I needed to come up with something that worked for this one. So after many hours of racking my brain on how to do this, I came up with a diagram. And I will post this diagram a little clearer so that you guys are able to see how this works. But for now, I'm just going to explain it, and then I'll put the diagram up for you to see. Hi guys, this is the diagram that I created in order to convert my 30 amp coach to a 50 amp coach. What my coach is a 2004 Thor Hurricane. It was set up with two air conditioners, one front, one back. And we're going to go ahead and talk about this diagram in particular. There were no diagrams on the internet anywhere that I could find. I even went through all of Thor's diagrams on their website and contacted them directly and could not get anything that would show how to convert this over to a 50 amp. They just never did it. So on a 30 amp service, you only have one 120 volt leg coming into your coach. On a 50 amp unit, you would have two 120 amp legs running into your coach. So this diagram shows it already converted. I did not have a 30 amp diagram to show you because they did not create one for this unit. It was just not existent. I'm sure there is buried in somewhere in Thor's archives, but no way I could get it. So that being said, I wanted to convert this unit to a 50 amp. So let's orient ourselves a little bit with this diagram that I created. If you look at the top, it says back AC unit, and if you look at the bottom, it says front AC unit. Those represent actually the direction of the RV itself. This particular RV, if you wanted to run the air conditioner on shore power, you could only choose one, front or rear. If you look at the diagram, there is a switch there. It says air conditioning switch. That would be if you were plugged in and you wanted to run the front air conditioner, you flipped it up. If you wanted to run the back air conditioner, you flipped it down, and the middle was off. You couldn't run either air conditioner. That seemed ridiculous when I'm out, let's say, camping and it's 100 degrees outside, and I want to be plugged into shore power and I want to run both air conditioners. So it was not possible. And most places will not let you run your generator while you're in a plugged unit, and I understand that. So I had to come up with something that was going to work, and I hope that you can print this diagram out because it's a pretty basic understanding once you understand how to read it. Again, in the wiring legend, the dot represents is where the power is, and the next to connection with the arrow references where it's going. So in this situation, we're going to go ahead and start off if I wanted to run the generator. Now, when I had the 30 amp, like I said, I could run both front and rear air conditioners on the generator. And how that was done was, in this particular generator, it is an Onan 5500. You have a 30 amp leg and you have a 20 amp leg coming off of your generator. The way that they originally ran this was they had a leg, the 20 amp went directly to the transfer switch on the left of the page. It says 30 amp transfer switch. That went straight from the generator, bypassed the breakers, and went right to the back AC unit. So the actual breaker for that unit was on the generator. It didn't go to the breaker panels at all. It just strictly used the breaker on the outside of the generator as the breaker, and I thought that was crazy. So that's how they did that. And if you see the 30 amp leg, it actually went to the breaker panel, so you could run the front. So if that makes sense, 20 amp ran the back, the 30 amp leg went into the breaker panel, and then you could run the front AC. So you could run both air conditioners at one time on generator only. Shore power, you couldn't. You had to use the switch and pick either rear or front AC. So that didn't work for me, especially I was also going to be wanting to run solar and an inverter. And I did install a 3000 watt inverter, and you can see that on the bottom right side where it says 3000 watt inverter. So we're going to walk how this goes. This has been converted, and this is how this situation works. Let's start off with generator. When you look at the 20 amp generator power coming off of the leg going down to the 30 amp transfer switch, this transfer switch still runs that is the stock transfer switch. It still runs the back AC unit. So I am technically still using just the 20 amp breaker on the outside generator to run the back AC unit. But it gives me power directly to the back AC unit, and that still works. The 30 amp leg coming off of the generator runs down and goes in as the secondary power on the 50 amp transfer switch. It goes up, over, back down, and into the primary transfer switch of the 50 amp. And then that goes back down into the breakers. Follow the lines and follow the arrows, and you'll see where I'm at. So now that I'm at the breaker box there then goes over and goes into the switch for the air conditioners. I ran that power to the center bus bar on that switch, and that allowed me to give power to both of the up and down. It didn't matter now at this point. That switch just, we don't even use that switch anymore. We don't need to, but the way the RV was wired, I had to tie into that without tearing up a bunch of other electrical. So that's how I can run both air conditioners. It goes in off the generator up to the back AC. It goes into the breaker box and feeds the where the switch is, and you can see where that switch goes back down and goes to the front AC. So you can kind of see how it tied it in, and then it pulled off into the front AC. So let's go ahead and talk about shore power now. If you go and look at the shore power line where it says 50 amp and you follow the red line left, that goes into the main transfer switch there on the 50 amp. That goes back over, and then that also goes back into the main on the other 50 amp, which feeds the breaker box. So you can see how on the right side of each breaker box is the designated main. So you have two sides. The left side is the secondary, the right side is the primary. So when I come up through the primary, it goes back over, goes into the second transfer switch, and that goes down to the breakers, and then that powers everything again. And then that gives us power to both legs on the breakers there. I split the phases inside the panel. On the if you look down on the second one where it says inverter, my inverter comes in and goes directly into the second transfer switch, and that goes into the breaker. I don't have to piggyback off of the first transfer switch. So that is only a 3000 watt inverter. So that's only a 120 volt system. So that goes in, and it still goes into the 50 amp breaker. And what I did on that is it splits. Now you're running 3,000 watts, and you have to split the phases on the breakers, and you need to know how to do that. This, like I said, this video is more for a diagram on how to do that. If you do not know how to do electrical, I would recommend hiring a professional to do it. Give him this schematic and he will know what to do. But you are dealing with electricity, and if you're not comfortable with it, I would recommend having somebody who is do this. But this will help them or yourself with an actual wiring diagram. Like I said, nothing else existed out there for this. I'm going to show you some pictures of how this works, but you can go back and reference this. I print this out. You can reference this diagram. You may have a similar system to this, but it gives you a way of kind of figuring this thing out. I laid in bed many nights trying to figure out how to make this wiring work. It does work. It works beautiful. I have not had any issues. Like with anything, you still have to have power management in a motorhome because they're motorhomes and they're not like homes. You have to use proper power management to not be tripping breakers and stuff. But this gives you a little bit more options on how to run things. I didn't add any more circuits than what the 30 amp RV already had. I did split the phases. This was designed solely because I wanted to be able to run both air conditioners at the same time off of shore power. This was the only reason why I created this. You could add more circuits now if you wanted to add some breakers into your breaker box and go ahead and add some other line out. One thing to remember if you're looking at power lines, if it is a 20 amp circuit, it will be a 12 2-wire. If it is a 15 amp circuit, it's going to be a 14 2-wire. It's really important that you do not try to run stuff off of the wrong wiring. Breakers are designed to protect the wires from burning up. So if you're trying to run a 20 amp breaker on a 14 2-wire, you will burn up that line and you will start a fire. So if you're not comfortable with power management and you're not comfortable with working in electrical situations, I greatly recommend that you do not try this yourself. But like I said, this was set up so that I could give you a schematic in order to do it. This is a lot of work, but hopefully it will help somebody else out there who is struggling with the wiring diagram and figuring out how to make this work for them. Thanks so much, guys. I'm going to show you a few pictures of what we've done, and I really hope this helps you out so much. Please share and with your friends and let them know because this doesn't exist out there unless you're going to pay some RV tech guy hours and hours and hours to figure this out. So thanks again. I hope this really helps out. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye. And this is why people wonder what it cost to rewire a coach from 30 amp to 50 amp. There's a lot of stuff to do, and it's a mess.